We're back at it again because you just can't stop spending. The FOMO has gripped you like no tomorrow, but don't worry, Dr. FOMO MD is here to put an ease to all your worries. Welcome to Room and Board, and these are the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Taneres Adventures. And this one is gonna be tough. It is gonna be tough. For those of you who are new to the series, this is a series I do whenever a board game campaign reaches over $1 million on Kickstarter or crowdfunding, or give me money, mom and dad, please, but do it online so I feel a little better about myself. Unrelated, thank you, mom and dad, for supporting my Patreon. But this is a series that I do to fight the FOMO, to splash cold water all over you, like my personality is wont to do, and make sure that if you are excited about Taneres Adventures, that you stop being excited about it. Just cut it out. Look at that dragon. You got that dragon. You want that dragon. No, it's not for you. No, but seriously, this is sort of... I like to play devil's advocate for larger campaigns because I myself have fallen prey numerous times to getting excited and getting swept up in the marketing and then buying it and spending the money that, maybe I could have kept for other things, and then having something arrive at my door later only to find that I wasn't excited about it and that I didn't really research it enough or realize that it wasn't for me. I got swept up in the marketing, I got swept up in the hype, and I didn't actually consider if it was the right game for me. So that's what I'm trying to do with this series. Hopefully I'm able to provide a balanced look and cool your FOMO, because everything that Taneres will be pushing towards you will be, hey, buy our game, everyone loves our game. And I'll tell you, that's been working on me as I've been seeing a lot of the coverage. But before we get into the 5 reasons you shouldn't back, I do like to also join that hype train and talk about what could be exciting. Because I'm Canadian and I like talking about fun things, and I recognize that this is an exciting campaign. And for me, what is most exciting about this is that they've kind of done away with Arena the Contest. If you're unfamiliar, if you're just jumping into this, Taneres Adventures, the Ultimate Edition, used to be Arena the Contest, which was a skirmish game, and then Taneres Adventures was an expansion for it. This was their initial campaign page over here, where you see it says both of those things that I just mentioned. You could purchase Arena the Contest, which was a PvP sort of style game, or you could purchase Taneres Adventures, which is a massive expansion which comes with over 40 miniatures and gives you 100 hours of gameplay. And so it took that core experience and then it turned it into a co-op campaign. And by all accounts, it seems like that was the right call, and that's why they are sort of just switching to this Ultimate Edition, which will combine those two things. And I like that. I like that Dragori Games, who's created it, has honed in on what people enjoy and are just focusing on that main product. I like that this is the new version of this thing, and it seems like they've made a lot of nice little tweaks that you would expect in a second edition. I think that was all great. I also love, and I should mention this, and actually I don't have it up on this computer, but now I do, I also love that Dragori Games isn't afraid of using other campaign games to market themselves. They've got this giveaway going on, which I will have a link to in the description below, and yes, that link will give me extra entries, and if I win, well then I'll just, play them all, review them all, and then give them all away again. Because I certainly can't afford all of these campaign games, where they are giving away a copy, a huge campaign bundle of Taneres Adventures Ultimate Edition, Kingdom Death Monster, Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, Oathsworn, and Icefarian Guard. This is an insane giveaway, one of the biggest ever. And I remember back when they were doing their Arena of the Contest and the Taneres first campaign, they had a contest of a similar sort. They gave away these games, and I don't know, I love giveaways. I love when people win stuff, and I think it's pretty cool that they just decided, oh yeah, we're going to give away all of these games. These are all good games. They don't mind that their game is being compared to these other games, which have been sort of lauded upon. And I don't know, I think it's really cool. So that's part of the campaign that I really enjoy. But back to the meat and potatoes of Taneres Adventures and why this one is actually difficult to me, because I'd never really looked into Taneres, and now that I have, I see a lot that is exciting. There is a lot about the game that arguably makes me go, well, maybe I should consider it. And a lot of that has to do with what I sort of envision as putting the consumer first. This is the quick start guide that I'm kind of scrolling through right now. But even just the little touches here where all of the villains of the same color, it says, are going to have the same sort of trigger. So if you know, okay, orange villains, they normally react in this way, and then purple villains react in this way. I think that's really cool, those little tweaks as you see through the gameplay. And I wanted to put this out yesterday, but I didn't have enough time to parse through the whole rulebook, and so that's why it's coming out today, because I wanted to be fully informed about the little nuances and because it's those little nuances that get me excited, and I feel like Taneres is filled with quite a few of them. Even just again in the villains attacking, I love that they have a favorite target, and you know one type of villain will always be pursuing another person, just like a beeline on that person. And I think that's kind of fun. Normally villains attack the person who's closest to them, right? Like that's sort of a standard RPG system, standard dungeon crawling system. And in this one, it's different. And so I like different, and it's these little touches that make it stand out. This is a game that feels very D&D inspired, even just their little stat boosts that you can have by being blessed or being cursed. You roll 2 dice and you take the better one out of the 2, right? So I guess I should back up for those of you who have even less of a knowledge of Taneres Adventures other than the ooh shiny, and honestly, who could blame you? Because their campaign page is all just ooh shiny. But we'll get to that in a second. It's going to be one of those games where you have sprawling quests, sprawling worlds. You go through this world and you're constantly doing these little scenarios and exploring and fighting monsters in a standard dungeon crawling format. In this, you will have a team of 4 heroes, and those 4 heroes will have different abilities. And another cool thing is that the abilities can only be used on your ally's turn. So these abilities and all these buffs that you have are reactionary and are used to support somebody else's turn and make them feel cool and not you. And I think that's really cool, so that gets me excited. A little note that if you ever roll a natural 20, you're always going to be rolling dice as sort of checks, and you can mitigate that dice roll if you want, or if you have the means to do so. But if you ever roll a natural 20, you just automatically hit, which I love, and you deal 5 extra damage. Even if the person's armor was more than 20, you're like, nah, no, you deal the damage. You hit no matter what. Even if you were debuffed to the point of nothingness, you can still have that Death Star run and hit that 20. And I think that's pretty cool too. You can see this is a list of all the things that it wants you to know, all the little buzzwords that it likes to tell you. I think one thing that we really should focus on is that it's such a large, expansive game that you're going to be hunting down lesser games and taking them out. Don't believe me? Engage in an immersive Kemet hunt. You're finding copies of Kemet and you're burning them to the ground. And so there is a lot here that I am surprised that I am interested in. And there's a lot here that does pull my attention. And I have to give credit where credit is due. And I'm going to switch to full screen for this. You should absolutely get this over the Gloomhaven reprint. I'm saying that. If you're torn between the two, get this. You know why? Because this one doesn't give you an RPG book as a separate tier that you can't use without purchasing the exclusive cards or the different bundle like Gloomhaven does. I just put out a video on Gloomhaven and I thought, oh yeah, this RPG book looks like good value. If you already have Gloomhaven, you can use the stuff that you have. And I thought this because the RPG book itself was a separate tier where it says it's a single unified resource, page rules for both players and GM, no additional source material required. And I thought, oh, that means you can play with it using the existing cards. And apparently, according to their FAQ, you still require a complete RPG card set or an RPG Deluxe box set, making this core rulebook as a pledge level that 220 people have pledged for useless to you, making you not be able to actually play the game without purchasing their cards. That's what it says to me, and it makes me so mad that I decided to do this tangent on this unrelated video. So way to go, Taneres. You're going to get a lot of benefit because I'm mad at Gloomhaven, but also because it looks good. It does look really interesting, and I really legitimately thought that going through this rule book, this 88-page rule book, that it would be fiddly, right? It would all be fiddly bits and it wouldn't be conducive. And while it is a little bit to get through, it feels like the structure of the campaign and the fact that they say specifically, I'll scroll back to the top. I love this thing right here where it says, hey, this is a little blue text box, gives you examples. If you already understand, you don't need to read these. And then these red text boxes mean you should skip them. They contain ultra specific rules that come next weekend, you're likely going to forget. And I love that. This shows to me that this is a document, and this is the old rulebook, for example. Not thrilled that this rulebook doesn't exist on their current page, but we'll get to that again in a second. But when you do get to it, there's a lot of things in here that push the user to just deciding the optimal experience. Like anytime there's a tie, you just get to decide what happens. And I think that's really good. It kind of simplifies it. You don't need to worry about constantly having this bookkeeping and this checking. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of it, hence the red text boxes, but still, props to Taneres. There is a lot in here that does seem exciting. And I think if you are going to go into this campaign with that sort of knowledge and buying into the mechanics of the thing, and the mechanics actually actively excite you, then this might be a really good back for you. However, I know there are some of you out there who are just in it for the extra dragon mini that you got, or who are just in it for the fact that people have been talking well about it. And I still think there are some things that may not gel with you. So let's get into it. Enough with the praise and with the niceness. It's time to get mean. Let's get into the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Taneres Adventures, the Ultimate Edition. And number 5 is going to come down to marketing. They are pushing you, desperately pushing you, to get this first, once we scroll through all these stretch goals, and these improved features, and this 4-month guarantee, which I'll come back to. They are pushing you to get this ultimate pledge, this 189 pledge. And that's not the pledge that you necessarily need to get, but it is structured in a way that makes this feel like the ultimate value, like the thing that you should get. And I don't necessarily mind that it is expensive. I mean, it's very expensive. It is more expensive than Iridia, which is at $165. This is $189. For me in Canada, that's $251. After shipping, that's going to be over $300. This is a pricey, expensive purchase. And just because games are getting more and more expensive now, it doesn't mean you should jump in for this. But where this kind of bugs me is that you have this base version. You have the Taneres Adventures, the standee version for $129. While I'm really excited there is the standee version, I'm thrilled about it that it exists. I'm thrilled it provides a much more affordable price point. $60 off feels really good. What I'm disappointed in is this pledge breakdown right here, where it breaks down what you get in the boxes. By its own nature, the standee version should be cheaper because you don't have to produce the plastic, right? And so therefore, my thinking is that all that should really be lacking are the minis. And yet here, they're really pushing you for the Taneres, to get the Taneres main thing with these 2 extra campaigns, and also the inclusion of the arena mode. Because Arena the Contest is in the Ultimate Edition, but Arena the Contest isn't in the standee version. And it feels like these sort of omissions, which could have been helped and solved and included by adding in some extra cards and tokens, which is not a $60 difference. It feels like these exclusions are specific in order to push you towards this ultimate price point, right? I don't understand why their standee version couldn't have the same sort of content just with standees. You're getting 109 standees here, and you're getting 101 miniatures here. So you're actually getting less actual figures here in the Ultimate Edition than you are in the standee version. And this just feels like a bit of a disconnect to me. I don't see the reason for this. And so to me, it reads as though the standee version is designed to give you the illusion of choice, right? So if you've purchased the Ultimate Edition because you think, oh wow, I'm getting such a better deal over the standee version because I'm getting those extra campaigns and I'm getting minis and I'm getting this PvP mode, it just feels to me like that's a deliberate marketing tactic that'll push people in that direction and make you forget about the high price point and the large price tag that you're actually paying because you think you're getting this deal. You have this illusion of the deal. It's the same idea with this 4 months guarantee of shipping, It says if your games are not going to your home from the local hubs after 4 months of a delivery estimate, you may request a refund and get 100% of the amount paid. 100% back. They're going to lose out on the Kickstarter fees and the processing fees. They're going to give you 100% of your money back. If you have a shipping issue, and we're plagued with shipping issues right now. So many companies are going under because they didn't realize shipping cost money, or they expected the profits from another campaign to be put towards the other shipping and didn't plan for things to happen. And so because of this sort of shipping crisis, this guarantee, this 4-month guarantee, seems really nice on the outside. But then when you read the fine print, it says, hey, if we haven't sent you the tracking number along with a feasible delivery date after 4 months of this campaign's estimated delivery date, and if you do not receive your rewards within 120 days of the estimated delivery date, you can request 100% back. This wording is specific. This means if they give you a tracking number, then they're clear. They have 4 extra months to give you a tracking number, and then they have an additional 4 extra months. And if you do not receive your rewards within 120 days of the estimated delivery date, doesn't say the campaign's estimated delivery date again, right? This wording, I think, is deliberately specific. So then they give you a tracking number, which has another estimated delivery date. And then if it doesn't get to you because of the estimated delivery date, well, then you've got another 4 months, then you can request a refund. But you also can't request a refund if there are acts of God, war, shipwreck, nautical lock, labor disputes, and faults of the shipping partners. And it's that last one where it's faults of the shipping partners, where it's like, hey, I wish you could request a refund, but it's our shipping partner's fault. And like, what else are you going to say? You just say, okay, sorry, dang, it's the shipping partner's fault. I guess I'll wait, right? So this thing feels really hollow to me, and I feel like it's a nice gesture if it's a legitimate gesture, but the way it's worded feels, legalese and a little bit hollow. And again, also talking about gameplay and sort of marketing things that make it feel exciting, and then when you look into it, it's not. They have a full, all painted pledge, right? The cosmetic all in. You'd think that all of your stuff would be all in, right? And all in would be cosmetic. You have the Taneres all in for $6.49, and they have the cosmetic all in $8.39, but it says includes painted minis. And these painted minis look cool. They look really cool. But you know what's not painted? All of the other miniatures from the super box full unpainted. So that's just another little flag of, oh yeah, you're paying $200 and you think it's a really good deal to get all your minis painted, and then you're just getting a handful of minis painted, right? None of this is particularly damning, but it's just stuff that I want to bring up, and perhaps some people have let those aspects increase their excitement and haven't looked into the logistics or the wording fully behind it. So that's kind of my number 5, all-encompassing of the pushes, being aware of where the marketing is pushing you, right? And being aware of where the campaign wants you to look versus where you want to look. And if you want to look, that's great, but be looking there because you want to look, not because it is so catchy and eye-grabbing. Now, reason number 4, and we're going to get into gameplay a little bit. Well, let's scroll down actually to their gameplay section. Also, a good thing to talk about in this sort of 5 leading into number 4 is it takes so long to get to the gameplay section, and I can vamp for only so little amount of time as we scroll through this, but it is so filled to the brim with ooh shiny. And then finally, when you get to like 80% down this incredibly long page, you finally have the gameplay section, which is amazing. Here we go, gameplay. I'm really excited to learn. Create and customize your team. Okay, tell me how to do that. There's just more pictures. Oh, there's plot. Okay, great. Where's the gameplay gonna be? Oh, it adapts to your play. Okay, where's the gameplay gonna? Oh, that's it. That's the end of the gameplay section. This campaign page is all about hyping you up, right? In that sort of, still in that number 5 reason, and it doesn't care about teaching you how to actually play. Stalker was worse because they didn't have any gameplay section, but this is barely better. And when you're trying to sell a game, generally, you may want to talk about how it works. And it's surprising to me because when you do go onto Board Game Geek and you look up the rule book, you have these 2 different resources that I've looked at. You have the Quick Start Guide, which is great. It's a 2-pager, very simple. And I recommend, if you haven't read this and you're pledged, you should drop your pledge because you did not do even the barest minimum of research into this game. You don't care. And the rulebook itself right here is also really, really effective to read through. Anyway, now we're actually on to our number 4. And number 4 is going to be if you don't like multi-handing heroes. So if you got to, what page is this? Page 10 of the rulebook. Very early in the rulebook, you will have noticed that all quests must be played by one team, and a team is a group of exactly 4 heroes. And this is important. This tells you sort of a feeling of what the game is going to be. If you're playing solo or if you're playing with 4, it doesn't matter. You're going to have that same feeling and that same experience, and that's fine. I don't care how many players you are going to juggle, it doesn't matter to me. But because this being a campaign game, I recognize that a lot of people are going to be attempting to solo this or to play with one other person, right? You have to be comfortable with multi-handing and comfortable with managing a lot of different bits and components. They recommend in your team that you have, there are 8 different characters. There are 8 different character classes, sort of, so to speak. There's the brute, the shooter, the tank, the bruiser, the tactician, the controller, and the healer, and the commander. And they recommend you have one of either the brute or the shooter, one of either the tank or the bruiser, one of either the tactician or controller, and one of either the healer or commander. The support, the strategic, the defensive, and the offensive roles. And this, personally, gets me excited. I think, okay, cool. I'm actually having a fully fledged team. I'm going to have a team that's going into these dungeons. I'm going to use my team's abilities. I'm going to use my team's abilities not on their turn, so it's going to be really supportive and moving things all around and manipulating the monsters and making them step away from me, because every time a unit sort of leaves the space when they're next to another unit, that unit gets to react and punch them in the face as they're leaving, right? And so if you're fine with multi-handing, then I think this is a legitimate consideration. But if you're not interested in multi-handing, you prefer just your own character and developing that own thing, each of these characters has 2 extra abilities and then 2 class abilities, and then a whole sheet. Let's see if there's an image of it. Right here, a whole sort of skill sheet where you're going to have 4 different skills that you're leveling up in different areas, and it's a lot to keep track of. And so if that doesn't excite you, that should excite you. If you're purchasing this game, that should absolutely excite you. And if you're like, that might feel a little bit complicated, or I've done dual handing before in other games when I was playing solo, and I just prefer to have the one character and just focus on my own self. Completely fine, but that's a reason why this may not be for you, because it is sort of what I see as a really integral part to the core experience. One thing also, talking about the combat, I mean, I don't really have it as a specific point, but again, if you don't like line of sight and you find line of sight annoying, I think it's around here, if I remember correctly. Maybe not. Maybe it's much further. Here we go. If you don't like line of sight, stay away, because that's how you're going to be calculating a lot of things. And it's sort of the most, let me zoom in a bit. The most annoying way of determining line of sight isn't just that you can clearly see the person, right? You can see that person because it is a direct line. It's a direct line between the 2 people, but they still have to draw it from corner to corner to make sure that nothing is obscuring you in the way. And I thought that was a bit funny, and also made me realize, oh yeah, okay, there might be some weird jutting things of closet cases so that you can't see the person. They recommend that you have a string, a ruler or a string or any other straight object to link corners, but the fact that that is as a tip means that it will be coming up pretty frequently in combat, and it's worthwhile mentioning as well. Not a point, I'm just tagging on my other point because I got other things that I want to talk about. And let's move on to those things, and specifically, I'm coming back to the campaign page here. Here we go, this is a good enough graphic to talk about. Reason number 3 is if you are not going to replay this campaign. And that's a pretty big ask. It's true. Now, this campaign sort of puts itself forward as slightly smaller than other campaigns, in a sense, because there's only 20 quests to get to the end. Around 20 quests will get you to the end of your journey, the end of your campaign. You'll be done. You'll be happy. You'll be rejoicing. But if we turn to the campaign page, we can see that it says dive into 110 epic quests with this massive dungeon crawler. I'm sure that might be kind of pumped up a little because of the additional campaigns. However, this is a game which, by all accounts, and this rulebook here, oh my goodness. No, this rulebook, because I downloaded it in another, there we go. This rulebook shows you the amount of branching paths and different ways to go through it. I think Gloomhaven is kind of similar because you have the good side and the evil side, right? You're going to play through Gloomhaven twice, doing all the good things and then doing all the bad things. kind of like the game Infamous, which was a fantastic video game. But if you look through here, even this little sheet of the list of quests, the phase calendars, how you mark things off, and how you mark your progression, it boasts that at the end of the campaign, I just read this. Here we go. When your campaign ends, no other player in the world will have a set of facts and calendars like yours. And while I think, maybe that's a little false or a little bit hyperbolic, I think it is true that the point of this game is that there are multiple quests and multiple pathways, and that has been significantly divided as such to encourage replayability. And if you're not willing to dive into this twice, at least just twice, to try to see all the other stuff that you have uncovered, and that doesn't actively excite you, I don't think you should purchase this game. I think that campaign games are structured in different ways. Some allow you to be more linear, some allow you to be in a sandbox style and complete all the quests in the order of your choosing, and you could kind of do this anyway. But if you're not willing to put in that effort and get this to the table and get this back and replay this and see the expansive world and only kind of do it as a one-shot, I think you're missing out on a lot of what Taneres has to offer, or claims to offer, I should say. So that's one thing that I wanted to highlight, and I think is an important factor when considering buying. And for a lot of people, I think this is going to be a positive, right? This is one of those points where most people, or 50% of people, will say, well, no, I am excited. You've now just made me more excited. And in that, I say, great. But I think it's really worth considering the concept of replaying it over and over, and if you're willing to devote that much time to it, which, we may talk about in a few seconds. But let's get on to number two. The reason number two that you shouldn't back Taneres Adventures is if, like me, you don't know how to read. Now I'll go back to this gameplay section and cut out my doom scrolling. What is shipping? $55. Yeah, geez. Where we go down to this 700 plus pages of cinematic plot and impactful decisions. And I think it's important to note here, I think this is a very telling feature, and if you watch some reviews, and I've watched a few, you'll see the books and books and books of stuff that you're going to have to go through. I find a lot of campaign games do this. A lot of campaign games that, okay, let's get away from that graphic. A lot of campaign games that put themselves forward as having an amazing story, the best story you've ever heard in your entire life. You'll never read a book again. And Taneres doesn't do this, which is sort of refreshing, or also because it means their story's terrible. But I think that there is a large emphasis on textual reading. And specifically in Taneres, one thing that I also find a little bit intriguing and exciting is they have a whole sort of book of logic puzzles. And I think they're combining their quest book and their logic puzzle book into a more streamlined and efficient fashion, so you can not have to go back and forth between the two books, which is great. Again, the benefits of coming in that sort of reprint stage, as most games that raise a lot of money will eventually do. They're popular enough to come back and have another campaign once they've been proven, once they've delivered. And this is kind of doing that. But what is intriguing is there are these logic puzzles that you're going to be sitting with and that you're going to have to figure out, and that are part of this book. There's a lot of fun that is going to be had, or hopefully fun. This is where you can see if it's going to be fun for you or not, of reading through these stories and making these decisions and going on these various quests, and then having to solve puzzles that will have some impact on the quest, or that will impede your progress forward. If you don't solve it, then you can't go to another quest, right? If you did solve it, wow, that's another branching path. And I think it's really important to talk about what we like in games. If you're looking for a dice chucker, skirmish battle style thing, well, maybe that's Arena of the Contest for you. Maybe that's another game that chucks more than just one d20. But I think, at least I do, I often forget that if there's too much narrative into my game, I become less interested in it. I like the physical, tactile nature of things. I like playing with pieces and figuring out efficiencies, but it takes a particular mood for me to be in to want to dive into a bunch of text, and especially if you're playing with other people. I have found this in my own personal preferences, that if I'm playing with other people, I don't really want to read a lot of story because I don't want to speak it out loud. right? That's why I kind of consider this as a solo game. That's why I wanted to talk about the multi-handing. It's all sort of tied into this specific narrative journey that people will be going on. And so I think really consider your own gaming habits, who you game with, the amount of time you want to spend with your head in a book. Also, if you're solving these logic puzzles and you're going to be playing them with a large group, is that going to be fun for you to sit around and do this little Sudoku together? Or would you rather be playing the game, right? All of these things sort of inform the experience that you're going to be having. And I think will slow the pace of the game to potentially a standstill if you're playing with other people. So considering the volume of text that is there and how that will impact your fun, I think is a good idea. And then finally, we're going to move on to number 1. And you see that I've moved back to the main screen, and that's because you probably know what's coming. Reason number 1, you cannot purchase or back Taneres Adventures, the Ultimate Edition, or the Standee Edition, or the Super Box Trove Chest, Double Trove Chest. Yeah, take that, Toony Bones, you friggin' game for little babies. You fit into 1 Calyx Cubby, we fit into 2 Calyx Cubbies. I actually love this. If you are getting everything, I like that they're actually considering storage, and this is a good format of just being able to pull things off the shelf, not having to pull the whole box. That's great. Means you'll never take it to a friend's house ever, but, you know, this should be a solo game, as we kind of established. The real reason why you shouldn't back it is that you don't have the physical space for any more campaign games. And yes, okay, this is also me segueing into my reminder, the constant reminder that's going to have to happen on these campaign games, these large campaigns that I have to tell myself is you don't have space and you don't have the time for them. The time is generally more important, but let's talk about the space for them as well. If you were to win that massive giveaway, the giveaway that's linked down below, which awesome, Dragori Games, you're freaking great. Love that you did that. Makes me so happy towards you as a company. I'm so thrilled that Taneres is doing well. Way to go. But if you were to win that thing, think about how much space on your shelves these things are going to take. Think about if you have any other style of game that you enjoy playing, will you get to it? It's the same for Aeon's Trespass Odyssey, which just happened. It was the same for Oathsworn. It's the same even for my beautiful darling Iridia that I'm still so excited to receive, but I haven't yet received that. I have so many campaign boxes taking up glorious space on my shelves, waiting for me to have the time to get to them, to have the time to play them, and I could be filling those with things that can bring me joy now and not joy in 2 or 3 years when I actually manage to carve out the time or carve out the will or reignite my own passion for these things that are now sitting on a shelf. How many campaign games do you own? Count them right now. Turn around. No, count the one in the closet too. Yeah. And you've forgotten one, so I'll let you catch up to that count. You know what the count is? It's too many. If it's over 2, it's probably too many. I work very hard to make board gaming my entire personality and the only thing that I do, and I still don't get campaign games to the table enough to warrant owning more. And I'm sure you do as well, in both counts. I'm sure you love them. I'm sure it is very exciting, and hey, having that thing on your shelf might be exciting, and might be exciting enough to be worth the purchase even if you don't ever open it. Having that idea of fun, the prospect of fun, being more important than the actual thing. But why? You have that 1100,000 hours. Yeah, I said that correctly. 1100,000 hours of that last campaign game that you purchased on the way. You have another one in the backlog. You have one on the shelf that you are 20 hours in to a 200-hour experience. Is Taneres going to be different, or are you just going for the next shiny thing? And you'll get 10 hours into this one and then give up and go on to something else. I know a lot of people need to hear this, and I am absolutely one of them. Chris of the future is one of them because you miserable people made Chris look into a game that looks really fun. And now Chris wants it, and Chris is mad. I'm Chris, for those of you who are new to the channel. I don't think I introduced myself at the beginning. And if you are new and you made it here, hit the like and subscribe. I'm a nice enough guy to deserve that. But it just gets to a point where you're going to be drowning in boxes and not enough time in the world to play them. There will be another chance to get this if you find you have the time. but ask yourself what makes this distinct from all the others that maybe you haven't carved out the time to play. And why is this one going to be different? That's it. Those are my 5 reasons you shouldn't back. I never know how long these are going to be. It feels like this was longer than the others, but I imagine it's the exact same amount of time. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you've played Tanares, if you played Arena, if you think the PvP is going to be worthwhile pulling out. It doesn't feel like it is. It feels like that additional Arena of the Contest ad actually provides no FOMO for me in terms, I would just get the standee pledge because I don't care about the PvP. I'm not going to play this PvP. There's no way am I going to be playing this in this large co-op game and then trying to dive into it in PvP. That just feels ludicrous to me. But I know people think, oh, now I've got variability. Now it's worth the purchase. I said I was done. I guess I'm done now. But let me know if you've played Arena, if you played Taneres, if you've played any of the content that has arrived within the past few months. If you're enjoying it, I'd love to hear it. Let me know if you are backing or if you're not. I always find the comments down below are great because it provides everybody's opinion. It doesn't just provide mine, me shouting at my camera. It provides everybody. And I like hearing you all talk me into things because then I can sometimes be a naughty, wicked, bad boy and I can point to the people who pushed me in that direction. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for liking and subscribing. My name is Chris George. And, oh, you know what? I do not have a catchphrase. But I will tell you, when I make a board game, it's going to be 8 trove boxes full of stuff. Just full of delicious little treasures. And that is a guarantee, because I'm probably not gonna make a board game. But I like playing them. And I'm glad you do too, and I'm glad we're here together. So see you in the next one.